know where the treats at.
Is this the passing of the torch, right? Is this what this signifies?
It comes down to that front office and what they feel is most important.
The champ is here. We touched down from a higher plane. Why you landed here?
We always look forward to that week because it was always intense.
You know that we ain't coming back. We about to.
The man, the myth, the legend, Dante Hall. My favorite player growing up was Dante Hall. I love you guys, show, but Dante was my guy.
Get to dashing because you done on the warfare.
This episode of Chief Concerns is brought to you by betonline.ag. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BLEAV50, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Chief Concerns Postgame Show. I'm Marcus Dash here with our guy Lance. Ugly win, but first and foremost, we got the win, so that was good. But man, this game honestly reminded me of Lance, and I don't know, I'm going to let you see what you have to say about this. But 2 years ago, during the COVID season, we went to the Super Bowl. That year, there were so many games we came out on fire, like the Buccaneers game, good example. Remember that first quarter, that record-breaking that game that Tyreek had in that first quarter, like the most receiving yards in one quarter. Then they slowly came back to that game, and then we ended up it came down to the end. It just seemed like that. It seemed like we had the game. Kelce's on the sideline, smiling, everyone's loving it. Willie Gay's touchdown. I thought the game was over right there. And then just complacency. I mean, self-inflicted wounds with Pat's. It's a bad decision making with those interceptions. But I mean, and I think I saw your tweet. Like, regardless, probably one of his worst games of his career. His stat line was still insane. But what do you think? I mean, what do you make for this game to be too close? I mean, closer than it should have been. It should have been 42-0 blowout kind of game.
Yeah. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather today, but I could not miss this opportunity to talk with my guys at the Chief Concern podcast, Chief Concern postgame show. I appreciate you guys having me on as always.
Of course, bro.
But yeah, man, all week long, I was convinced that this was a game that the Chiefs needed to make a big statement in, not because of the fact that this is a team that the Chiefs had to take ultra seriously, because we know that the Chiefs are now 10-0 since Patrick Mahomes took over against the Broncos. They've won several times over. They haven't lost to the Broncos since 2015. We know all that stuff. So this wasn't a team that they needed to look at as a legitimate threat, but based upon the loss the Chiefs took just a week ago against a team that they very much could be facing in the playoffs in the near future, a team that's beaten them 3 consecutive times, I felt that this was a game that the Chiefs needed to get right, both mentally, emotionally, physically, all the aspects you could look at from both the team aspect and from the fans' standpoint. The fans needed a game where they felt good about it. And, in the back of my mind, because I know Andy Reid and how he's always done things here in Kansas City, I don't want to complain because Andy Reid's one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game, and we're very lucky to have him here. But I think in the back of my mind, the resounding consistency of Andy Reid's way of just going conservative once they have what they would deem as a comfortable lead seems to always rear its ugly head. And instead of having a relaxing 20, 30-point victory like a lot of teams seem to have, like the Niners just did with their backup quarterback against Tom Brady, the Chiefs like to have these games where it's a lot closer than it ever should have been. The difference in today's game, though, is that we can live with that when it's against Tom Brady and a team that inevitably won the Super Bowl that year against the Chiefs, because that's a great team. Not a team that's averaging 13.8 points per game through their first 12 games of the season. Not a team that's the lowest scoring team in the last decade, since the 2012 Chiefs. Where you're having a shootout with a team like that, where you're basically surviving a team that you had a 27-point lead on. Where everything's going right for you. Where, you start off a little slow with back-to-back field goals, but then you just put a thumping on them. You're up 27-0 before people finish their first plate of nachos. And then you start having these mistakes. And listen, I can live with the Chiefs taking their foot off the gas. I wasn't expecting them to floor it right into a damn wall, though. I wasn't expecting them to go out there and decide, you know what? Let's make this into a game for zero reason. Because there was zero reason for this to ever be a game. The Chiefs were up 4 scores. There was no reason in the world why they had to survive a team this bad offensively, this inept offensively, to let them have life. A lifeless team. Giving them life makes no sense whatsoever. And I know that we have first world problems here, Marcus, but there's still problems. And again, the Patrick Mahomes situation, what I said in my tweet, I stand by it. This man came into this game as the MVP, and I don't think that's the case right now, even though he had a game where he completed 67% of his passes, had 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had 3 costly turnovers that cost the Chiefs two scores. I don't think the Chiefs' defense was as bad as the score indicated, because I don't think it was the Chiefs' defense that gave up those 2 touchdowns. That was on Patrick Mahomes. And as much as we praise him and as much as we love him, and I think he's the greatest quarterback that's ever thrown a football, I have to criticize him equally when he goes out there and plays the game as bad as he did. And he played very bad tonight. He looked awful for the majority of those last 2.5 quarters. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if we can explain it. All we do know is we're seeing this more times than not. And the Chiefs have a real problem when it comes to turnovers. This is now 8 straight games where they've had at least 1 turnover. That may not be a problem in the regular season because the Chiefs are 10-3 and can still very much get that 1 seed. When it comes to the playoffs and things matter more than it ever does in the regular season, that will cost them if they don't get it right. So, although, yes, the Chiefs did get the W, and I know people are going to say, well, they're 10-3, let's just forget about it, let's move on. There are problems that this team has that we cannot ignore, Marcus, if we really still believe this team's going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, defensively, to start that game out, we looked great, right, defensively. Mahomes' picks got the defense back on the field shortly after, getting the Broncos to punt. So, I mean, it's one game, there's been many times in Mahomes' short career where, obviously he's put the team on his back and played hero ball to get us to a victory. So, sometimes he's going to have an off game, right? So, I mean, we can't expect him to do what he does every week, and even in this game, like you said, his numbers were impeccable. I will say, troubling, although, 3 interceptions, so the defense got on the field a little more than they should have in this game. This was Russ's best game of the year. And that's something that's like, man, a team that looked like dog. I mean, like you mentioned, the 2012 Chiefs said that they were the lowest scoring team since that 2012 Chiefs team, which obviously everyone knows, the 2-14. But Russ, first game this year with 3 touchdowns, with 3 passing touchdowns. He's only done 2. He's only done 2 once this year, 2 touchdowns, and then he has 3 in this one. And then his third highest, his 4th highest passing yard total. And he probably would have eclipsed it again had he not gotten hurt. I mean, what do you have to say about, so forget about the interceptions aspect of it. We score those points. Mahomes has the interceptions in the first half. And then we go on that streak of not doing anything offensively, 3 and out. The first 2 drives on the second half were 3 and out. And then we ended up coming back and scoring. What do you make of that, of the play calling? I mean, Pacheco had a good game today. I think 13 carries, I believe. So maybe, 13 carries, 70 yards, solid game. I feel like we should be running the ball more with him, but I think it's beyond that, I would have to say. I mean, Mahomes trying to squeeze the ball to JuJu in the triple coverage. It's like, what's going on here? And then also, I'm still not impressed with MVS. Each week, last week he had that nice catch. But I am not impressed with that signing at all. And that's a reason why Green Bay wanted to get rid of him, I think. And I think we're seeing that now. But what do you make of kind of the offense going just kind of inept for half the game?
There are 3 glaring problems that I'm seeing right now for the team as it's currently constructed. First one that I think that we need to attack is the biggest one. I think it's the play calling. I know that Eric Bieniemy is a very capable offensive coordinator. I know that Andy Reid has his hands still very much in the structure of how this offense runs on a weekly basis. But we see it week in and week out. Even in the games the Chiefs have put up big numbers, that you've sat there, you've scratched your head because you feel like, are they going to let the defense earn this stop, or are they just going to do it for them? Because that's what it feels like a lot of times, that the Chiefs make it easy for some of these defenses to stop them in particular on 3rd and short. I don't know about you, but for the first 3 years of the Mahomes era, when it was 3rd and whatever, I didn't care. I knew the Chiefs were going to convert. because they always found a way. But it seems like this year in particular, when it's 3rd and 1, I'm more nervous than when it's 3rd and 17. Because when it's 3rd and 17, you know that the Chiefs are going to have to air the ball out. And more times than not, Patrick's going to find his guy and he's going to do something miraculous like he normally does. But when it's 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, it's almost like the Chiefs just are going to telegraph what they're going to do. It's going to be a Michael Burton little quick, draw play real fast to get him, try to get him over. And sometimes that's worked. But defenses have been seeing that now for 3 years. They know that's coming. And it's so repetitive. And I think that the creative juices are sometimes lacking in these big pressured moments. They rely too much on the magic of Mahomes that when it comes down to you actually scheming up a play, sometimes I think the Chiefs get in their own way and stub their toe on this far more times than not. And again, that is something they got to fix for playoffs. The other two things are, and I don't know if you've noticed this, Marcus, but for the last couple of weeks, Travis Kelce hasn't seemed right to me.
Yeah.
I know he's made some plays here and there. He's still great.
Yeah.
But he looks like he's either dealing with an injury and or he's fatigued really bad. So I was messaging with my guys Shaggy Shane and Clay Windler during the game, and I said, guys, I think it's time the Chiefs put him on a pitch count for the rest of the season until the playoffs. Because to the point of Travis Kelce, as great as he is 33 years old. And he has taken a beating in his career. He's been very durable, but he's taken a beating, and those will catch up. And if the Chiefs, we obviously know the Chiefs are going to need him for the playoff run, I would put him on a pitch count for the rest of the season. I still feel confident the Chiefs can find a way to run the table without Travis Kelce out there for 50, 60 snaps a game. But I think they need to get him fresh and ready to go, which leads me to my third point. The Chiefs have been missing Mecole Hardman. I know people think that's crazy to say, but his speed, his ability to extend drives with those little jet sweeps, gimmicky plays have been missing so much. I know we love Kadarius Toney, and we've talked about him so much on this show. I've talked about him so much on my show. But Mecole Hardman has been much more of a piece the Chiefs have been missing because Mecole Hardman, right before he got injured, was a guy that was scoring touchdowns for the Chiefs. He was a difference maker in the red zone. And we are seeing the Chiefs constantly banging their heads against the wall in the red zone and settling for field goals or not getting scores at all. And I think Mecole Hardman has been a big part of that. So as soon as Mecole Hardman can get back, they got to get him back. And they got to get him going because I think it's going to take a lot of pressure off Travis Kelce, and it might take a lot of pressure off the coaching staff from having to create some plays that for some reason they're not able to do on these 3rd and shorts.
And for those asking in the chat, JD will be coming on here shortly. You guys know who JD is. He'll be on shortly. He likes to make his grand entrance midway through the show. I will say you're talking about Michael Burton, but I am a Michael Bolton fan. So I just said Michael Bolton. I'm a Michael Bolton fan. But yeah, I'll say that 3rd and 1 play when we usually do the fullback dive with Burton, that's usually a guarantee. I think that may have been the first or the second time I've ever seen that play get hammered out there and stopped. But you're right though. I am really uncomfortable when it comes to our third and short plays. Really uncomfortable. And you're right. We do miss Hardman and we do miss Toney. I mean, if we didn't have, if we had Toney, at least I could say, okay, we don't really need Hardman, right? Those are two dynamic players that defenses have to account for. So like not having either one of them is tough, man. I will say in regards to Kelce, you're spot on. I mean, I think right now, and I don't know if you think this though, I think we kind of have him on a pitch count right now. He's checking off the field a lot, and that's, I mean, just. In all the years of having Kelce on your team, I've never said, and in the red zone too, he's coming out during the red zone. I remember I'm like at the 12, and there was 2 plays in a row again. We saw it last week, and then this week he wasn't out. He wasn't out on the field, and I'm like, what is that? He's not hurt.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, there was that whole rumor that he may have had the flu last week. Maybe we are doing a pitch count with him because Noah Gray seems to be doing pretty good. I mean, he's no Kelce, but like Noah Gray's solid. Solid replace. I mean, solid like a fill in for like a week, but not a full on Kelce replacement. So yeah, maybe we are kind of bringing this kind of a Kelce kind of pitch count as we head into the playoffs. Man, do you think that's what's going on right now, or do you think there's more to it than what we know?
Yeah, I think that's what the Chiefs are now having to do, and it's not by choice. I think they don't have a choice because I think there's something wrong with Travis Kelce. We know that last year, that after that Bills game when he got absolutely rocked on that dirty ass hit by Jordan Poyer, that his neck wasn't right for the rest of the season. He was dealing with that all season long. So I don't know if there's something to that magnitude that he's dealing with, because we know Travis doesn't talk about his injuries. We know he doesn't talk about these things. He just fights through it because he's just that tough dude. But I think the Chiefs, because you're seeing him tell them, hey, get me out of the game. Yeah, I need to get out.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Chiefs are choosing. And now I think that the Chiefs have to make that choice. They have to get him on a pitch count because right now, like you said, it's kind of one of those things where, okay, well, he's saying he needs to get out. He's our veteran tight end. We need to motion him out. Now, luckily, to your point, Noah Gray's been playing very solid football. So that's been a nice relief as well. But, yeah, man, if Travis Kelce is not at least close to 75-80% in the playoffs, man, Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be next level and do what he did tonight, minus the 3 horrific turnovers that the Chiefs are trying to have themselves a nice little playoff run.
Yep. So we got our guy coming on here. Jason Dunn is entering the room right now. JD, what's going on, brother?
What's happening? Let me see it.
Hey, man, look. We don't need you showing the weapons off, all right? Dude,
Man, help it, man. You're carrying with me all the time, man. What do you want me to do?
I already have self-esteem issues. I don't need you doing this to me, all right?
Yeah, I can't help it.
JD,
what we talking about here? What's going on?
So we've kind of taken a little bit of a whole kind of dissecting the game and different elements of it. We talked earlier about just kind of what we saw from the offense, kind of, first few drives, got 2 field goals out of it. We had that one penalty from Orlando Brown that kind of stalled that first drive. Then we kicked the field goal. Then, we come out to that big lead, and then you kind of see the offense stall out as a whole. We had the interceptions, but the offense kind of stalled out, even take it to the first 2 possessions in the third quarter, 3 and out. Then, we kind of get back on a roll again. What did you make of kind of the offensive showing today and making this game closer than it really should have been at all? I mean, we should have won that game 49-0.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had just lack of focus. I think when you go up, you beat them 28-0, all of a sudden guys get lackadaisical, and it's normal, to be honest with you. Especially when you're beating somebody handily. You start doing things. He throws a little flip and everybody's scoring, so everything looks good. And so these things do happen. But the thing is, you got to be able to keep focus, and that's part of the problem when especially playing a team like that in Denver. Who's a desperate team, they'll try everything. And then you just give them a little bit of glimmer of hope, just a little bit, to try to just keep them there. And I think it's part of the problem. But I'm going to keep going back to the same thing, man, about just running the football. We just don't do the practical things when we need to. And so, yeah, you know what? Hey, we score passing the football, but, which is our identity. That's our identity. But what's going to help us go further in the playoffs, what's going to help us go and win a Super Bowl, is getting that established running game. And so when I'm looking at when you're in the red zone and it's 2nd and 3 or, 3rd and short, and you decide you're going to pass the ball, I'm like, my goodness, what are we doing? Right. And sometimes that's what it is. When a team like that is kind of reeling, you're going to try anything, right? Let's just keep doing our own stuff. Let's keep up with the game plan. But sometimes it's all about like, look, you know what? Let's hand it off to Pacheco. Let him get a couple more numbers. Running the football. We just have to do it. We just haven't decided that that's what we're going to dedicate ourselves to, is running the football more effectively. And that's our problem. So I always look at that. I think, when we decide to pass the football, and Patrick made some bad decisions. I mean, he'll let you know that. It's just, you're throwing it in traffic because guys are around and just looking at his eyes. And so you just get careless with it. And so I think, you just have to do a much better job of protecting the football, especially during that time when you're up like that, 28-0. You got to protect the football. And so what ends up happening, and we talk about these things all the time, when offense starts stalling, the defense is affected by it because now they're on the field more than they need to be, and they haven't really got a rest. It's like, daggone, now here we go. Now we got to get back on out there on the field. And so all of that is just accumulation of different things that happen to get to where you at. But that's kind of my take on it, man. My thing is we got to be able to run the football more, period. That's it, point blank.
Yeah, and I was making a point to Lance that, when Pacheco had 13 carries today, he should have had way more touches than that. 13 is not enough.
Man, at least 20.
Yeah.
At the very least 20.
Yeah. And that, I would say, Marcus, real quick, that's the frustrating part about this, is it'd be one thing if the Chiefs just simply couldn't run. Like if they just did not have a run game, they didn't have a reliable running back. That'd be one thing. They're like, hey, they're the Buccaneers. They just can't run the ball. But that's not the point. Then Pacheco and McKinnon had incredible games tonight, man. So, yeah, they need to be given more opportunities to do so. I know you're probably trying to keep these guys fresh for the playoff run, but these are still games where it's tighter than it should have been. You got to have these guys go out there and make these plays because, like I said, these guys were out there performing when they were given the opportunity to. You got to keep letting them do it, man.
Right. And also, too, it helps out the O-line. Helps them out, as far as like in the pass blocking and all of it. Just helps out in the whole aspect of the overall scope of what you're trying to do. Because even if you're running these guys, you got other guys on that's behind you. So it ain't like we're short of running backs. We got effective guys that can run the football. We just got Melvin Gordon out there, also too. So Ronald Jones, we got guys to run the ball. So you could hand it off to Pacheco. You can hand it off to McKinnon. Help the O-line out, right? So you don't have to throw it 40, 50 times. Why are we throwing it 40, 50 times this game when you're up by that? You don't have to. Start running the clock. Start milking the clock a little bit more. And so that's what I'm talking about as far as like that's the effectiveness of what you try to do offensively against a team like this, right? Because we know they got a great secondary, okay? They got a great pass rushing. They got some speed rushers out there. This is going to make it a little tight. But, of course, what we do, we're going back into our tendencies, and that's how they start playing it. We start trying to do a little sprint out. It was cut down, not sprint out, when they were just chasing Patrick down from the backside. They knew that. They lined up to the outside because they knew we was going to do the little rollout pass. Our tendency. And so, when you do that, you get hits on the quarterback, things like that can happen, man. I hate seeing things of that nature because that's how guys can get hurt.
And you can make the argument too that two of the interceptions that Mahomes threw. All three of them, had we been running the ball there, those turnovers wouldn't have happened, and the defense would have to go back on the field again. Because I think the defense actually played a good game today, but they kept going back out in the field, and they were winded. They were on the field all game.
Yeah, man, it's disappointing for a defense. I don't care. You ask any defensive guy, anytime an interception is thrown, especially something like that, you just like, you just kind of throw your hands up like, wow, okay, we just sat down. Like we really just sat down to get our breath. Now we got to go back out there. I think Brandon Williams looked good. It's a bright spot though on defense. I think he looked exceptional. Mm-hmm. And so I was saying that some of our combinations that we use on the D line, man, it doesn't work. But when you see him in there, you could tell a difference on like how he was pushing the guy back on Russell Wilson. And that was like the bright spot. That thing is I was just kind of looking at. I knew the game was going to kind of be this way somewhat. I wasn't worried at all at any point of the game, to be honest with you. And I knew the Chiefs wasn't either. They weren't really worried about it. It was just, it's a team that you're playing that you should beat, you're going to beat, but it's all about how you do it. And so when you're doing this, you practice on the things that you need practice on, what you want to get better at. Running the football. Let's get better at that. Let's call some plays that, we haven't quite done. Now we need to start teeing off on these guys, okay? Get used to doing that.
Yeah, 50% of the Broncos' points tonight were scored on turnovers. And we'd seen, like I talked about, 8 straight games of turnovers, 8 consecutive games the Chiefs have had at least one turnover. Last week, a turnover cost the Chiefs the game. Kelce putting the ball on the ground, gave the Bengals second life. They went and scored the scoring drive that ended up winning the game 27-24 and ended up being the deciding factor. Tonight, this game was that much closer simply because of turnovers. Patrick, you notice, guys, the Broncos didn't even get on their side of the field until Patrick turned the ball over the first time, and then it gave a lifeless team life. This defense, as much as – look, I crush this defense a lot of times, sometimes unfairly, because I think they can play better than what they're capable of, and sometimes they can definitely play better than what they've done at times. But tonight was not because the defense was out there looking lost against a bad offense. It's because of the fact that bad offense for the first time in a long time was like, oh, we got an opportunity here, fellas. Right. We have an opportunity to help the defense for the first time in 10, 12 weeks. This is something we have not experienced. You saw it in Russell Wilson's body language. You saw it in Jerry Jeudy's body language. You saw it in everybody's body language. We're going to play our asses off right now because we have an opportunity. The God on the field, Patrick Mahomes, is showing blood. There's blood in the water. Let's go after these guys. They're giving us an opportunity. Let's not squander it because we don't get many opportunities like this. We're an offense that is averaging less than 14 points a game this season, guys. Let's go get it. And that's when things started to change, guys. And so I know it's not easy. It's easy for us to sit here and say, let's just stop turning the ball over. But again, like you said, Marcus, these turnovers were just – and JD's 100% correct. You get a little lackadaisical. And I know Patrick likes to – make these cool plays because like he did the white chocolate Jason Williams no-look pass to McKinnon, and it looks cool, it's sexy, it's fun. But in games like this, man, you got to just go out there and finish them. Sometimes it doesn't have to be sexy all the time. When you're up 27 points, just go out there and be methodical and get the damn game over with, man. I'm good with that. If you got a 27-point lead, You can win that game 27-9, and I'll live with that. Just don't make this game closer than it has to be, because then you are exerting energy you don't need to use down the stretch when you could be getting guys rested and ready for the playoff push.
When you start going into like the percentages on winning with certain turnovers, amount of turnovers and whatnot, then you start seeing it. You start seeing, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. When you start giving the team, like you said, field position, right? Like you said, when they weren't moving the ball until, well, shoot, they're gonna keep giving it to us right here. If short field, absolutely, let's take advantage of it. And then of course, something, a penalty here, something like that happens, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're in the end zone. Jerry Judy's over there, doing the gritty and all these other different things. Everybody celebrate. It's been a long time I've seen Russell Wilson celebrate like that. I've never seen a fist pump in Denver before. So
True.
It was, hey man, they loved that little spurt that they had, while they had it. But that's who the Denver Broncos was. I mean, let's make no mistake about it. We know they was a very bad football team. We should have beat them handily, no doubt about it. Now, and we was doing it, but like I said, it just, okay, man, are we good? Just chill out, right? So, what was y'all talking about before when I got in about tight ends? What was y'all saying? What was going on with that?
So we were talking about, I mean, Lance brought up the point that, is there something, because last week, there was that potential, that rumor of the flu going around, and we may have said Kelce didn't look right. And then Lance kind of made the point, he still doesn't look right. And I was saying to me, and he was saying that maybe as Kelce gets older, maybe when we start to see him on a pitch count, on a little snap count. And to me, in the last few weeks, it seems like we already have begun that process. He's always he's asking to come out more than I've ever seen him asking to come out of a game. In the red zone, I've seen last week and this week, I'm seeing Noah Gray in there more so than him. And I'll say this too. I'm also seeing a reduction of Jody Fortson's play in the red zone. I don't even see Jody Fortson anymore. I see him on punt team and special teams. I don't even see him out there on offense anymore, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we were talking about if we should probably start to roll him on a snap count as we get closer to the playoffs. So we have him healthy and a full 100% Kelce as we approach the playoffs. Do you think that he's currently on a pitch count right now? And do you think something's wrong with Travis right now, like injury wise or health wise?
No, I mean, if he had the flu, the flu is going to take you a while to get back for one. But I think you should. I think it's just the right thing to do to have someone on a pitch count when you don't necessarily need him in certain plays. You don't need to put him in there. And so it just makes sense because he's getting older, and a guy like that you want to protect. I mean, that's your golden guy. So you don't want him getting hurt over something silly, or somebody else like Noah Gray could come in or Jody Fortson could necessarily come in and do. So we got two capable tight ends that can fill that hole for Travis if he need to. And so the other thing though too is because of our offense has predicated kind of on Travis. Noah does a good job of getting open. We know Jody's a effective receiver, and then we got all the other people around him. Sky Moore, MVS finally caught a ball toward the end of the game. I forgot he was playing. I was like, well, sure, I forgot MVS was playing.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard his name all game. And so and we're going to be getting some more weapons back. So we got weapons. That's the thing about it. We got weapons. And I think just because how we run the offense is just finding holes, finding windows, you can afford to sit Travis down if you need to. And they'll trust Travis. He'll let them know how his body feels. They're watching. That's one thing that they're not going to do. They're not going to overplay him when you don't need to. I mean, that'd just be silly, stupid. So.
What do you think it is? Because I thought Fortson was going to be more step up a lot when we had all these injuries offensively. Because obviously Tony's out, Harmon's out, and obviously not the same kind of guy, right? Different types of guys who fill that role. But I thought Fortson was going to get a little more snaps, maybe out wide, just a little more involved in the offense with those guys being out. And it seems like it's been the opposite. Those guys have been out, and he's just kind of taking a reduced role offensively. What do you make of Fortson's reduced role?
I don't know. To be honest with you, it's kind of I'm perplexed by that too. Because I thought the same thing. I'm like, you got a guy that's capable, who's got a big body, could body up, who could run by corners and safeties, and no doubt about it, in the linebackers. So he's still a matchup nightmare. Just maybe how they wanted to just run plays, some of the packaging, but what you have, maybe what they want to do might be part of the problem. Because sometimes what ends up happening, once you get into the tempo of things, you like, as a coordinator, you're like, oh man, like, dang God, I can get to run him in. And sometimes the coaches start talking about it, man, we wanted to play Jody a little bit more than what we did. And they'll talk about it. And so that's part of the problem when they don't quite see it, where they thought he might have been in somewhat of the game plan. And then all of a sudden you realize that you never called any of those plays. But sometimes in the situation, if the situation is not ideal for him to be in, then he just won't be in. But I think especially when we having a problem, and I think it's what you were kind of asking, down in the red zone, he needs to be in the game. I mean, because not only is there effective blocking, but he's a great, pass catcher. He can play basketball down there. So it would be absolutely normal for me to say, look, Jody Fortson needs to be down here within the 20 on. He needs to be in some of these packages. Probably, like you said, 50% to 75%, he needs to be in here. Heck, if we run a 31, we're running the fullback blast with Burton, should go on and do something with Jody running down the sideline. Why not put him out in the flat? I just, so I think we kind of exhausted that play. I think I tweeted that to the nauseum for real. I mean, teams is just like, okay, here's Burton. We're going to go for the little dive, little blast here. Let's play that first. So I think, we just had to get somebody like that involved. And Watson, too, he's big body. We got big body guys. Man. We do. And so you just hope you see more of that. And like I said, I hope we see more of just running the football. And so we just kind of get back into, what we do, what has been working for us.
If I told you guys there was a guy on a random team, doesn't matter what NFL team it was, but he's 6'6", 250 pounds, and over 70% of his career completions, or receptions rather, were touchdowns, wouldn't that sound like a guy that you want to throw the ball to in the red zone? Because that's Jody Fortson. Yeah. And you know what? I saw Jody Fortson really frustrated tonight towards the end of the game, and I don't blame him. I don't know what the purpose was. Maybe it had nothing to do with him not being used. But I saw Patrick talking to him a little bit as the game was dwindling down. But if I'm Jody, I'm frustrated too, because I think that guy, as much as he's worked his body back into shape, tearing his Achilles like he did it last year, getting back into the graces of this coaching staff, getting back on this roster, it's not easy making this type of roster, a Super Bowl winning roster, a team that can win a Super Bowl. That's not easy to do, let alone an NFL roster at all. So I would be frustrated too. And JD, you and I have talked about this for over a year now, about the 50-50 balls, man. Like, I don't know why the Chiefs are fixated on not throwing the ball into the end zone when they're in the red zone. I don't understand why that is. In 2018, if you go watch the highlight tapes of Patrick Mahomes' 50 touchdown passes, I mean, at least 12 of them are throws into the end zone. I mean, the play that everybody always goes back to about when did we know Mahomes was the throw against the 49ers at home in week 3. What did he do? Oh, yeah, he threw it in the back of the end zone to a guy named Chris Conley, who can't even make a roster consistently in the NFL. So that should tell you what should be happening right now, is the Chiefs need to be throwing to their big dudes out there in the corners of the end zone, giving these guys opportunities to get these scoring plays down. Because, yes, I understand you're a finesse offense. Yes, I understand that Andy Reid has a system in place that he wants to implement on a weekly basis. But you have these guys on this roster for a reason. I have to believe it's because you want to give this guy an opportunity to go out there and make plays. So, yeah, I want to see Jody Fortson utilized a lot more. I know Noah Gray's probably the more complete player, but Jody Fortson's got the frame, man, that you would envy. Anybody would envy, outside of maybe JD himself. But, yeah, it's very confusing to me that he has not been utilized. Yeah, 24-inch pythons over here.
What you going to do when JD runs wild on you?
Yeah. No, it is. It is frustrating, especially to see, like you said, 6'6", 250. Come on. I mean, that's what you want. That's the guy you're looking for, right? And so, like I said, man, it is frustrating not to see. And the thing is, hopefully he's not getting frustrated. I tell you what, man, I really hate when I see guys get frustrated and show frustration, kind of like they do. To me, I think it's just bad taste to kind of show that. Because it's like it's getting to you, right? It's like, okay, you didn't showed your hand. If this is what's going to do, then as a defender, I'm like, oh, I got this guy. I'm staying frustrated. I'm being in his ear the whole time. Look at you. What's wrong with you crying? What are you crying about? I'm just start messing with a guy. But I think, you have to definitely implement something with Jody Fortson, especially in the red zone. I don't care that you just have to do it. You had to make sure it's a point to get him in there. Well, another thing, I guess I was looking at some of the comments. They were just talking about some of the things that, have to worry about with the Bengals and the Bills, in the playoffs. If that's some of the things. I think we're putting the pieces together. And I kind of look at this game as like one of those things that it's like the game that you kind of like you're trying different things. You're trying everything. You're just trying to make sure everything you get in the tempo of doing things and moving around didn't quite work. So it's like, okay, well, all right, that what we did in the second half was horrible. We need to do a much better job as far as protecting the football. That's first and foremost. You know, that football, that's your livelihood right there. I mean, that's how everybody eats. You got to make sure you protect that thing at all costs. So first and foremost, that needs to be addressed immediately. And I think it's what Travis did because they said he was doing drills, you know, of like keeping it tight and stuff like that, like when he first ran. Yeah. And like, you know, it's, like you said, he said, even though I let it go, it's still in your head because you still got to think about it because, you know, defenses see that they've done that. Well, shoot, next time somebody else is going to come in and try to rip the ball out. It's just, I mean, it's how it works. You've seen it on film. So you got to continue to do it. But I think the Chiefs are just, we know that this part of the season, you do have the Broncos, you do have the Texans, you know, so you have somewhat of an easy schedule. You know it's going to be that, right? And so like we talk about pitch counts, all those things do come into play. You have to worry about that. So
yeah. And I think the lack of Jody, right, especially right now, when over the last 3 weeks, we've seen kind of a red zone deficiency. We're not really, you know, scoring touchdowns in the red zone, and it's a correlation. We're not using a guy who all throughout preseason, all throughout the first part of this season, we saw a guy who we come in literally just in the red zone, we throw it up to him. So it's interesting. We're having red zone problems right now. Let's go back to the bread and butter, a guy who we pretty much is only using the red zone. And regardless if we throw it to him or not, the defenses watch through the game tape. They know that guy's a red zone nightmare. So they'll focus on him, even if you don't even use him. So
yeah. Come on, man. I got me a 6-foot corner, shoot 5'10". Come on. Hey, guess what? This week we're going to use. It's going to be back shoulder fade, go up there and go get it. High point the football. We got to give you that ball at least. We got to at least try it at least one time. So I just don't. It just makes sense. Just absolutely makes sense to me.
Yeah. So we got a question from someone who on Twitter, our guy Clarence DM'd me saying he wanted to ask you, JD. Said after losing to the Bills and the Bengals, does it show that we have a trouble beating the top teams in the conference? That we can kind of beat the bad teams in the AFC, but we have a trouble beating the top teams in the AFC. Are you concerned at all with 2 of our 3 losses being Bengals and the Bills?
No, not at all. And the reason I say that is because all the games have been close. You know, we could have easily won those games as well as losing them, to be honest with you. So I don't see it was anything like, you know, somebody just, you know, kicked our teeth in and, you know, we just made us look sick. It was nothing like that. It was always a hard-fought game. That's what it boiled down to. So I don't really worry about them. I think it's going to come down to, like you said, protecting the football. That's what it's always going to come down to, especially in games like this. But I don't really worry about them too much. I think once we roll and we get everybody healthy, like we should, I think we shore up this defensive line. I think it's what I think people don't quite understand. Like when I see other defenses and defensive lines and stuff, how they get after people, that all those things are important. You got to have the right pieces, you know, to do the right things all the time. And so we seen last year what happened. Well, how come we didn't go to the Super Bowl? Well, on the D line, we didn't get no sacks. We didn't get any pressure. So those things came back to haunt us, right? We had a good enough team. I mean, we got to the AFC Championship game. We should have probably won that game. Easy. We should have. So I'm not really worried about it as much. You know, they're going to come in with their A game. We're going to come with our A game. But I'm always betting on the Chiefs. I think our A game is better than anybody else's A game that's out there.
Yeah, I think JD's 100% correct on this one when it comes to these games are very winnable. And that's why I'm not overly concerned. I think it is a concern, but I'm not overly concerned. You always got to respect your opponent when they've beaten you the way that those teams have beaten the Chiefs over the last couple of years. But let's take it back even further. Let's take it back to 2019. You guys remember the 2 teams the Chiefs faced in the playoffs? It was the Texans and the Titans before they got to the Super Bowl. You know who beat the Chiefs in the regular season? The Texans and the Titans. And those games were actually a little bit more of a margin of victory for those 2 teams than it was for the Bills and for the Bengals this year. So I look at it like that, man. I look at it like the Chiefs are a team that very much frustrate me in a lot of ways. But when it comes to the playoffs, I mean, let's be real, guys. Outside of 2 overtime losses, the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl every time. And let's be real here. Let's give the Chiefs a break here. The Chiefs had a depleted offensive line, and had they not had that, they're back-to-back Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give this team and look, more than both of you guys combined, I'm more critical on this team. I will go at this team, man. I will call people out, and I don't feel bad about it because it's genuinely how I feel and what I believe, and I will not BS anybody because you guys don't deserve that. You deserve the truth from me. Mm-hmm. Having said that, this team has hosted the last 4 FC championships, and that cannot be ignored. And this team is literally a half game out of the first seed in the AFC despite these problems, despite these losses. So I'm going to give them enough of a benefit of the doubt to say they can get these things right, because it wasn't like even last season, because I heard Randy Moss, the great Randy Moss this morning on ESPN, talk about, well, these losses this year are showing they missed Tyreek Hill. I'm sorry, do you guys not remember when Tyreek Hill was on this team last year when the Bengals came in here and whooped the Chiefs' ass 38-20? Or how about, when the Bengals beat the Chiefs 34-31? Or in the AFC Championship when they won 27-24? I'm pretty sure Tyreek Hill was in all 3 of those games.
Yeah. So
it isn't a Tyreek Hill thing, is it? It isn't something the Chiefs can't fix. That's what's frustrating to me, is the Chiefs can't fix them. So fix it, because this team's more than capable enough. This team could still very well win the Super Bowl. I still believe they're going to, but they do have some problems, guys. They need to fix them.
Well, I think that's the frustrating I have, is because what we end up doing is that we always nitpick at certain things on why they're not winning, right? And so Randy Moss says that, or somebody may be a little bit more critical on some things, right? And I know you have your truth about how you see things, and we could just easily, why did this student do? Listen, like I said, let's keep it in context. We went to 4 AFC championship games, okay? 2 Super Bowls, right? This is a very good football team with a very good quarterback, tight end, coach. We know that, okay? They're a complete team, and this team is always going to have a bullseye on their back. It's just how it is, right? When I say we're the standard, we are the standard in the NFL, and everybody knows it. There's no doubt about it. And so until the Bills beat us to go to the championship and win the Super Bowl, then, we're always going to be that thorn in their side. Cincinnati was like, man, we got past them. I can't believe how they was beating us the first half in each game, and we found ourselves here. And then all of a sudden they start patting themselves on the back. They start, getting a little bit of confidence. Well, maybe we are the giant killers around here, right? Maybe we are those guys.
Yeah.
Hey, man, keep believing that. I hope you get into a sense of comfort dealing with that and thinking that's who you are. All right. Before you know it, you're gonna get hit over the head. All right, with the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. I'm just saying, we got to understand this team, 4 AFC championships, 2 Super Bowls. This is a very good football team, okay? And they're keeping all that together as much as possible as they can. All we've been doing is adding pieces. So we got some more wide receivers. We got some pass twitch guys. Tony's going to come back. You know what I mean? You got JuJu. All those guys are going to start coming in at the right time when we necessarily need them. And so we start doing that. Sky Moore's playing at a high level. He's starting to look like, more of a veteran guy when he's out there. I'm starting to see Sky Moore a whole lot more receiving the football. And so when I'm seeing that, you just putting these things together, right? It's just you just mixing it all, right? Okay, at the right time, it's like baking a cake. And so when you're putting all these ingredients in, hey, don't really taste that. Throw a little bit more in, okay? Get this in here, put it up. Before you know it, you're gonna have your nice little cake, little icing on top of it. You're ready to go and celebrate with it, man. So that's how I'm looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm. There's one thing I wanted to kind of highlight from today. I know we talked about the problems that exist in this game. There was plenty of it, but there were some bright spots. Last week and pretty much every other week in the season, we kind of talk about the pass rush not being there. But today they came big, man. 6 sacks tonight. And I don't even know how many pressures we had, but we had a ton. And our guy Carl Loftus, JD and I we were texting about Carl Loftus earlier, and he came to play today. He was in the backfield all game long. So I want to give shout out to the pass rush. What did you guys see? And what did you guys like? Obviously, the 6 sacks is amazing. But what did you guys like about having that push up front this week that we didn't see last week against the Bengals?
Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, I love the fact that they didn't let the Broncos come out of this game feeling comfortable. You felt it immediately. The Broncos like, damn, like this is just gonna be more of the same. Because you saw the Chiefs last week give up 431 yards. You saw them allow 7 of 11 third down conversions for the Bengals, and they came in this game and said, over our dead body, we're not gonna let the Broncos do this to us, man. We just got embarrassed against the Bengals last week. We had opportunities. We did not get to Joe Burrow enough. We're not going to let Russell Wilson come out here and just start slinging the ball over the damn field. He doesn't have a starting wide receiver, Cortland Sutton. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. Like I said, it wasn't until Patrick Mahomes started turning the ball over the defense even showed any signs that they had any weakness in this game. They looked very good. And as much as the secondary's young and inexperienced and gives up plays, I mean, we got to give Jerry Jeudy some credit, man. This kid's a hell of a route runner. He's fast as hell. He found speed. He found space. These dudes battled, man, and it was a hell of a battle. And I got to give this defense a lot of credit. I don't like the box score, but like I said, the box score doesn't always tell the whole story. And the box score tells us that the Chiefs gave up 28 points to a team that, like I said, was the bottom of the barrel offensively this season. And in fact, I think this goes far more on the offense than it does the defense, because the offense, after going up 27 to, the Chiefs were up 27-0. The Chiefs offense actually got outscored tonight. They got outscored 28-27. So, because they only scored 27 points offensively. So, that's a weird thing to say. It's not often you say the Broncos outscore a team, let alone a team like the Chiefs that have Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback. So, George Karlaftis, who's really, every single week it seems like he's getting better and better. I love that Frank Clark was putting on the pressure. It sucks to see Russell Wilson go down with that concussion. But Frank Clark did not give up on that play, and that's everything I need to see from him. Because I don't have a ton of expectation from Frank Clark anymore at this point of his career. I think he's a good, solid rotational piece. But to see him not give up on a play like that, you hate to see a guy go down to injury. But to see Frank Clark keep that from being a touchdown, that's a hell of a play, man. So I think the Chris Jones, Colin Saunders, Brandon Williams, like we just talked about a few minutes ago, seeing these guys step up in a game like this was what saved this game. I know Jerick McKinnon had a baller game. We could talk about him. But the defense staved up, and they did save Patrick Mahomes from losing a game the Chiefs had no business even making it into a game.
Yeah, I think the pass rush was definitely a lot better than what they've seen last week, no doubt about it. And so, like we were talking about Karlaftis earlier, I'm just like, look, it's time for this guy to kind of get out here and ride. We needed those guys, and then the context we were using it in, I was looking at the Cincinnati game, and of course, Hendricks and those guys are coming after like those relentless guys. I said, man, I love guys like that. I just love it, and I hate playing against guys like that. And that's what. George gives you. He gives you all of that hard, coming, scratching, crawling, spinning, tucking. It's like, man, is this guy ever going to quit? No, he's not. And we need a guy like that. Matter of fact, when you see that with Dunlop and you see that with, like you said, with Frank also too, that right there gives you a lot of hope as far as like, look, these guys kind of understand what it means to kind of get back here to the quarterback. Now, Chris does a good job. I'm still needing to see the guys on the inside helping Chris out. That's why I think we have the issue and the problem is that other defensive tackle is not getting the push. But I think with Williams coming in, I think it's going to help out a whole lot. Dan is trying to do it from where he is, man. He's kind of undersized where he's at. So they're going to be able to grab him up a little bit more. But I think the pressure in the sacks was critical. It was absolutely critical. Like you said, not to keep him comfortable at all. Because you can't look, Russell Wilson, he'll still let it cook if you let it, okay? And Jerry Jeudy's a very good wide receiver, no doubt about it. So, now that was exceptional. We need to have that going into the playoffs and be deep in the playoffs. Guys coming off the football, we need to have that. And so it was good to see the guys come out here, make some sacks, get some pressures. I think the defense did pretty well.
Yeah, and another thing that kind of stood out to me was because I was hoping to see this week, with Brandon Williams in there, because we were talking about the run game not being able to stop a nosebleed on run defense last week. We had such a big lead that they really couldn't run the ball. I mean, it was more they kind of went to pass one pretty early on in that game, so we never actually got to see how good our run D was going to be with the addition of Brandon Williams, which kind of sucked. I wanted to be able to see that. But I want to ask you guys this, and I know, JD, you and I have talked about how if Jerick McKinnon, in the past we talked about, if Jerick McKinnon was a little bit bigger of a back, he'd be our 3-down back. He'd be the full-on guy. If he was a little bigger, he'd be our perfect Andy Reid running back. And I got to ask you, with his injury history, and like we saw last year, we didn't see Jerick McKinnon fully till towards the end of the season as we got into the postseason. And it seems like over the last few weeks, well, obviously with CH being out, but more so in the last few weeks, we're starting to see more of McKinnon, and obviously we're getting closer to the playoffs, and we're starting to get him more involved in the rotation. Because before he was just coming in on third downs, and that was it. Now he's kind of getting, he's getting more involved than he had been previously. Is this obviously something that we're doing this purposely? Because as we go into playoffs, we'll be using him more. Is that what that is?
I think so. Jim McKinnon's he's Mr. Everything. He's the one that can do it all, to be honest with you. And you got to have a guy like that, especially kind of teaching Pacheco, who may still doesn't quite have the pass protection down. Still needs to be desired on his end. But also, too, when you go into the playoffs, you got to trust a guy like that. And so what you got to understand is the NFL season is longer than the college season. And so that's another thing. You got a rookie coming in, running the football. He's going to start feeling it. He might not think he will, but he will start feeling it like, okay, because your body get used to, man, I'm only playing, 10, 11 games. But now I'm doing, 17 and then the playoffs, and I'm playing until January, like, man, this is what we're going to be doing. So Pacheco's season usually is going to start ending around now. It usually would be. So this is important. So Jared McKinnon's coming in, taking a little off. You see Pacheco on the sideline. He's just watching. He's learning. He's watching. And so it's tempo. It's all about tempo. He's been there before. Jared McKinnon, you ain't got no question about him whatsoever when you come in. You already know he's got it down. He already knows what to do. He could do it, shell out all the blocking responsibilities, everybody on the line. I'm sure as good as Patrick. You might even let Patrick know, oh, wait, hold on. We got to come here, right? And so that when you have a veteran presence like that, that's so important, especially in pass protection. But also, too, when you're making plays, he can make guys miss. Jim McKinnon has just always been a tie on the back ever since he got into the league. It's just the injuries that's just been holding him back. We know that. And so it's unfortunate because this kind of led him here, but I'm glad it did, because to be honest with you, I don't know what we would do with a guy that didn't have that type of experience. And then you have a guy like Pacheco coming in and trying to do things. And, it leaves you a little bit more vulnerable to things as well. So he's just a solid guy, man, all the way around. I'm a huge Jared McKinnon fan. Huge.
Yeah, you guys remember last postseason when the Chiefs absolutely slaughtered the Steelers, had that historic game against the Bills, and then had themselves a really good first half against the Bengals. Outside of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, there was not a better player on this roster than Jerick McKinnon in that run. He was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was funny, too, because the whole entire season, he did not do a single thing. He was not a contributor whatsoever. And to your guys' point about him being an undersized player, he's in his 30s now. He's dealt with a ton of injuries in his career. This guy has flourished in the opportunities he's been given in Kansas City. Mm. And I'll be honest with you guys, as much as I love Pacheco, and I think that kid is an absolute stud, I'm pretty sure they make cocaine out of his DNA because the dude is just constantly just up and down. He has so much energy. It's absurd. It's insane. But I mean, if you're gonna ask me right now who I have the most faith and trust in when it comes to the running backs on this team going into the postseason, it is without question Jerick McKinnon.
Oh yeah.
Not just because Isiah Pacheco's some rookie. It has honestly, it has nothing to do with Pacheco. It has everything to do with what McKinnon's done. And right. I think that he is just a guy that is a dual threat running back, and that is the perfect asset in an Andy Reid offense. Because the best running back in the history of Andy Reid's offense has been Brian Westbrook. And Brian Westbrook was a dual threat running back. He didn't light up the scoreboard with the rushing stats. The man was catching the ball and was great in pass pro. He knew how to protect the Donovan McNabb. He knew how to protect and Kevin Kolb, any of those guys he played with back in the Philadelphia days. Yeah. That is what McKinnon is. He is that version of that guy in this new offense for Andy Reid in Kansas City. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, it wouldn't shock me none if the Chiefs make a deep playoff push that Jerick McKinnon is not one of the 3 to 5 most valuable players on the Chiefs roster because I call him Clutch McKinnon because in games like this when you need him, he goes out there and performs. I mean, the man only had 13 touches tonight and had 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's numbers that Saquon Barkley should put up. That's numbers that the best running backs in football should put up. This is a guy that's a backup to a backup when everyone's healthy. That's absurd, man. So he deserves all the praise. He deserves the flowers. We got to give it to him, and I'm expecting him to be another big-time contributor to this playoff push.
And kind of on that, when you think about like running screens and how it looks, like a lot of it is just kind of it's the acting part of it. He's been around. He knows how to do it, how to be effective. Because sometimes a young guy just tell his hand. He's just so amped up. Like Pacheco said, screen, screen. You can tell he's going to run a screen or pass protection. You see him kind of bouncing back, and I'm watching him. I'm just watching, how he's actually, being utilized in the backfield and whatnot. And he's still got a lot to learn. He's got a lot to learn, but he's got a great guy in front of him, McKinnon. And so, like he was saying, even if he has CEH, look, CEH, I'm not putting CEH in when I got Jared McKinnon back here to catch the ball out the backfield or does the pass protection. that knows everything. Like I said, that's a guy, that's a hat you can lean on. There's one guy you could definitely lean on, with especially in the playoffs. So without a doubt, man, he would be, like you said, one of the 3 or 4 guys that you look at stats wise, like, wow, there's McKinnon. Shouldn't surprise you whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, yeah, look at that playoff run last year. He was huge for us. And JD and I talked about it after that Bengals game. We should have given him the ball more in that Cincinnati game. He was eating.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, so and it's good to see that it's kind of the same kind of formula, because towards the end of last year, I remember his Broncos game was his come out party. That was like week 16, I believe. He had a huge game in that one, and that was kind of his, okay, we're going to start to see a little bit more of him as we continue.
So let me say this, because I think this is kind of where everybody's mind is, right? It's like when you go into the playoffs and what are you looking for? I'm thinking, we still don't have all our pieces. Okay, we just don't. We don't have all our guys here. McCrow. We don't have Tony. There's guys we know we're going to get back. Okay, we got backups as far as on the line that could come out here and play. Maybe some fresh legs to do some things. We just got Williams here, which is going to help out tremendously in the run game. I'm thinking we are still putting these things together. And what we've seen all these other teams, you see these guys are playing. They ain't got nobody else. All the guys, they're out here. They've been out here playing. And so we know what they got to throw at the Chiefs. True. They ain't see McCall, the Bengals didn't see McCall and Tony. They ain't see that. So they're going to be, that's another weapon we use just on special teams alone in itself, right? So it's things we are adding on to the mix, just making the Chiefs better. We're going to be a much better team when it comes to playoffs. And I think that's one thing that we got to continue to look at. We're going to become a better team. And so that's why I don't want to, we can go ahead and talk about the things being critical, but as far as how I see it, I see ourselves still putting this thing together, still putting the cake together. When we get ready for the playoffs, we're going to be firing on all cylinders, right? What do you think, Lance? And Marcus, y'all talk to me. What y'all think? That's how I see it. So what y'all think?
Yeah, I think that, this is the biggest reason why when I talk during games, I get frustrated in the moment, but then I sit back and obviously talking to you guys makes things a lot better, because I hear the sound clarity coming from JD, from the experiences he had in his career, and understanding you got to look at the big picture, because in the moment you get so frustrated with these things and you forget just what this team has accomplished throughout the last 4 or 5 years, and how this team is still very much in great shape to make these things happen. I think it's a culmination of the past and how things have always just seemed to, this franchise just seemed to be so snake bitten, especially in the playoff run, where, a team is so poised and ready to win a Super Bowl, and then there's a no punt game. And then there's, things that always seem to happen that just, how did this take place? You just kick yourself. How did the Chiefs lose in 2016 when they didn't allow a touchdown to the Steelers? There's always this stuff in the back of your head that thinks it's just going to happen again. And then you remember, oh yeah, no matter what matchup the Chiefs have, no matter how frustrating things might be in certain games and certain weeks during the season, they are going to have the best quarterback head coach duo no matter who they face in the playoffs. And that is something that I always go back and give myself a nice little breather and take solace in. And again, this is not me trying to downplay anything, because this team does have issues. Let's be honest, guys. They have an inexperienced secondary. The run game has been inept at times. The play calling has been questionable at times. Patrick Mahomes has made some costly turnovers. But at the end of the day, guys, if we're all being honest here, I don't think we would trade our places with any other franchise or any other fan base. I don't think we would. So I do believe they're going to click on all cylinders. I think they're going to utilize these next 3 or 4 games to figure out some of these problems, because I do believe this is a coaching staff that is capable of doing so. And I do believe Patrick Mahomes is such a workaholic and a perfectionist, and as EB calls him, a competitive prick. If he's truly who he says he is and what they say he is, then I believe that by postseason's time, whether the Chiefs have the 1 seed, 2 seed, or 3 seed, they're going to be ready to take care of business when that time comes, guys. And I still have very much faith that's going to happen. It may not be easier than some other runs they've had, but it can still be done, and I do have faith they're going to get it done.
Right. Yeah, look, I'd rather them not have faith in the Chiefs. I'd rather them not talk about us. Talk about the Bills and the Bengals. Put the pressure on them, right? Do that. And don't see the Chiefs coming and watch them hit you over the head with it. So that's what I'm hoping for. Now, Joe Burrow's looking incredible, and, they doing up there in the Bills, man, they're going to win the Super. Fine. talk about those guys. Please do that. All right. When you're doing that, just know Kansas City Chiefs are sitting there waiting. You got a guy, Patrick Mahomes, is sitting there like this. Come on, bring it on. You got other guys out here with the swag and whatnot who's ready to compete. They're ready to do it. Because he can't wait to get back on the field. You know that. You can just tell guys cannot wait just to get back on the field and start doing offenses the defenses in. Seriously. So I'd rather do it. Hey, put us on the back burner. I guess we're not the hot topic anymore, right? Now it's going to be the 3 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes, now he doesn't look like the MVP. Now he looks like he's, the 5th best quarterback in the NFL at this moment. Fine, whatever. Keep that going. Keep that rhythm going if you want to do it that way. I'd rather do it that way as opposed to keeping it on front burner all the time talking about it and being critical on everything, right? You still be critical, but guess what? Hey, every team has an issue. I don't care what team. There's not one team out here that I'm sitting there saying, look, these guys are just perfect all the way through. Every single team I look at has an issue. Yeah. It's all about exploiting them. That's what you do.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Every team has their own issues. You could say, the Bills are the 1 seed right now. They look like a lock to be in the Super Bowl. They have their issues. They have no running game. It's a different guy each week, and they can't get past 30 yards. I mean, and we have issues too. We have a young secondary. And right now, when we played the Bills, we didn't have our full cast of characters. And Bills didn't have their full cast of characters either. So there's a lot we don't know about them. Because I believe they had a few injuries in their secondary when we played them in Buffalo. Every team's got their thing, but for the most part, and going into the playoffs, not everyone's gonna be 100% healthy, but we'll actually we'll have our full cast of guys on offense. We'll have McCole back, we'll have Tony back, and we'll have McKinnon, and we'll see at CH too. I mean, we'll have everyone back. And as we've seen, CH and McCole were very huge for us in the red zone, and we haven't been the same without those 2 guys. So go figure. So next week on the tab, we got Houston next Sunday. Houston, 1-11-1 this year, but they had Dallas on the ropes today. So this isn't a team to scoff at.
But it's the same. It's the same like the Chiefs playing the Broncos. The Dallas is thinking this is Houston. Who do they have? Yeah. Right? Who they have on we're the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, we're already being projected going to the Super Bowl. We got everything that you want: an offense, a defense. A defense is playing a high level. Dak is doing a tremendous job. Pollard's going off. Zeke is having a good time. He looks, like he's a young spring chicken. It's the same thing. And so when you go down there and play in Houston, like, sure, we wounded ducks. We're gonna come here. We still gonna try to hit you in the mouth. So I don't look at that as far as it's just same thing. Probably just not being as focused as you should, right? But it's the NFL. This is the NFL. Guys getting paid to win games. Nobody. I don't care. Not one team and not one person is going to lay down for any other guy. And if you do, you shouldn't be in the league. Period. Point blank.
Yeah, when any team that has Lovie Smith on the sideline, I'm going to respect that team regardless of what the record is. That guy led a team to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman as his quarterback. So that's I'm going to give that guy's respect. So yeah, they may have a terrible record. They may have the number 1 overall pick, but that's a team that you saw today against a very good Cowboys team. They gave them every ounce of a fight. That team will go out there, man, and swing hard. Yeah. And the Chiefs better take them seriously. I'm not expecting the Chiefs to lose to the Texans, but the Chiefs better be ready for a dogfight because Lovie Smith and that badass beard of his, they're going to be ready to fight, man. I'm telling you, I got beard respect.
I see you. I see you. Got the beard game. That's right. Yeah. That's a fact, though. Lovie, yeah. Great coach. No doubt about it. He'll have them ready.
Looking at the opening line for next week, Chiefs I've opened up as a 14-point favorite against the Texans. And that's at Houston too. So got to travel for that. So 14 points. And I believe Dallas was a 17.5-point favorite against Houston today. So
And that game, I think the Texans had the lead with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, they had a lead with a minute left, and Dallas scored a touchdown at the end to put them up by 4, and then Houston.
Okay,
that was a nail biter.
Wow. Okay, I didn't see the end of the score. I didn't know it was like that though.
Oh yeah.
So
they went to Jeff Driscoll, their third string court. Well, he was their third stringer, but now I guess now he's their guy. They're going with for the rest of the season.
We'll see.
Looked all right. Dual threat QB. He looked all right.
The poor man's Shane Michelle.
Yeah. Yeah. Except there's a lot of Chief fans who think Shane Michelle could be a QB1 somewhere. People think we could trade him for a 3rd round pick, which there's
hot.
Yeah, the huge hot takes. A lot of them. You saw a lot of those during preseason when he was tearing up the 4th stringers on the Bears. So, this guy.
Hey, Brock Purdy just put a 35 burger on our boy Tom Brady. So, hey, anything can happen, fellas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No doubt about that.
All right, fellas. Well, that does it for us, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Chief Concerns, our post-game show presented by Bet Online. We'll see you guys on our post-game show next Sunday. You can catch Lance on the Spoken Podcast every Saturday, and you can obviously catch me and JD right on Chief Concerns on Thursday. So we got a lot of good stuff for you guys this week, especially as we approach the playoffs. So get down to the nitty-gritty. So exciting stuff.
You guys have a great weekend.
All right,
All right,
guys.
brother. Be good, brother. All right. Love you.
All right, guys.
Love you guys. Bye.
See you guys. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.